right. Well, hello and welcome back to this episode of the podcast. Today we have a guest with us. We have Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers, and I am so excited to have a guest for this episode because we are going to be talking about sleep and health. And I have to admit for myself, sleep is the self-care thing I struggle with the most. In fact, this year I bought myself this Aura ring so that I can track my sleep and, try to scientifically show myself that the impact it has on my health and my performance. So that is something that I have done to try to improve my sleep because I know that it is something that I don't always prioritize. So I'm so excited to have another physician here with me today who is passionate about sleep. So let's talk a little bit about who Dr. Shayla is. So after practicing a plant-based diet for numerous years, Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers has strived to incorporate lifestyle medicine into her practice, educating patients on how to improve and overcome their chronic conditions as a family physician. She founded the Essence of Health Wellness Clinic and Coaching in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2019, so she could combine her deep knowledge of medicine, plant-based nutrition, and athletic training to provide preventive and chronic care to her patients with a unique concierge model of care. Dr. Toombs-Withers earned a doctorate degree in osteopathic medicine from the Edward via Virginia College of Osteopathic Medicine and completed residency training at the University of Cincinnati and Christ Hospital. She's also completed fellowship training in obesity medicine and holds a certificate of plant-based nutrition. Her bases for health are in line with her two favorite quotes: "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure," and "let food be thy medicine." So I'm so excited to have you here today. You were gracious enough to let me join you on your podcast, which is the Essence of Health, right? So we'll make sure that the listeners all have a link to that. But today we could learn so much from you about different things. Today we're going to dive into sleep and stress. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why the topic of sleep and stress is important to you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on your show. It was so fun to have you on my podcast. I'm happy to be back here chatting with you again. Yeah, so the reason I'm so passionate about sleep and stress is because as a busy professional, I often encounter myself, a lot of other busy professionals within my practice, and then just us with what we do. We are busy professionals ourselves. And just realizing that impact that it really has on our health and how even it's that I feel like sleep is that little thing we don't think about. We know at some point we have to sleep, but typically for most of us, it's like you just wear yourself out. And then at that certain time, you're like, okay, now I'm going to pass out now. But instead of really prioritizing that sleep as part of your healthcare plan, which if we did, we could actually get more health benefits from it. And it's one of those things where, more and more studies are even showing that it can be helpful along with stress reduction and helpful for our mental health as well as our physical health.
Yeah, in terms of mental health, that's where I see it really catch up with people where it becomes really obvious. I think it can sometimes be more subtle for other things like athletic performance or concentration, but when I always see it as new parents and they are, really sleep deprived from having this infant in their home and getting short bursts of sleep. And you just quickly see how important sleep is when you see someone who's so sleep deprived like that, right? But it can be more subtle on a
Right.
day-to-day
Yeah.
basis of how it's impacting us.
Mhm.
So let's start with the
Yeah,
basics
yeah, for
because
sure.
sometimes no one tells us like the basics about our health. How much sleep does an adult need?
Yeah, so from the recommendations from the National Sleep Foundation, they recommend 7 to 9 hours for adults. Now, that can go on both ends of the spectrum. If you may, for some people, they may require a little bit more than that 9 hours, and some people can actually function a little bit less than that 7 hours. But 7 to 9 is the recommendation there.
Awesome. Yeah, I usually tell my patients if you think you're doing okay with less than 6.5, like you're probably not, right? Like
Yeah.
most people truly do need that minimum of close to 7. And so you probably just
Mhm.
don't know what you're missing out on if you routinely are getting like 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep a night, which a lot of people
Exactly.
do.
Yeah, for us in healthcare, residency brings back those flashbacks where you had little bursts of sleep, if that or none, and just how little you're able to like kind of think, even stuff you knew that you knew, just like pulling that knowledge out at those times when you're just so sleep deprived, it definitely makes a difference.
But I think most of us have experienced like when you don't get enough sleep, you kind of have that brain fog, trouble concentrating. I definitely get
Mhm.
spacey if I don't have enough sleep. I can't find my car keys, those little things start to like add up. But other than some of those things that are really, I think, obvious to those of us who really, don't get enough sleep one night, what are some of the more subtle things that could be impacting our health if we're not getting enough sleep?
Yeah, so that's so true. Definitely those kind of brain fog and focus and attention issues. But even when we're not getting enough sleep, it can affect our physical health. So within the realm of obesity medicine, one of the things that we found is that inadequate sleep can also contribute to weight gain as well as difficulty with weight loss in individuals. The reason for that are there are a couple of factors. For one, stress can play a part. So anytime our bodies are up under stress, it causes our hunger hormones to become out of whack. We start to crave certain foods. Typically, those foods that we crave are going to be that salt, sugar, fat type of stuff, not typically the healthy stuff. Um, and so, lack of sleep is promoting that stress, and that can cause some of that weight gain and some of that difficulty with weight loss. Certain hormones are released. That hunger hormone, that ghrelin, tends to go up, and your body can't, even recognize that it should be full at those times that it should be, and so it throws that out of whack. And then, there can be some other even underlying sleep conditions that lack of sleep can be playing a part of too. And so, that can cause some other health issues, which we can certainly go into that. But yeah, but just lack of sleep within itself can certainly upset those stress factors within our body and cause us to gain weight, have difficulty losing weight. It can also raise our blood sugar, can cause us to be more insulin resistant from lack of sleep. The way I like to explain it, even with stress and sleep, it's kind of that fight or flight mechanism that, most of us are aware of. When our bodies are under stress, typically, you're either going to fight it out or you're going to flee it. Well, if it's just a chronic kind of day-to-day stress, you're not necessarily able to do either of those things. And so in turn, your body is going to react as if it was to, be prepared for this battle. So it's going to, it's going to retain that fat. You're not going to release it because if you're in a true battle, you would need that thing. You're going to retain all of those calories because you would need that energy if you're going to be doing this fight or flight thing. But you're not physically fighting or fighting anything. And so you're retaining all of that into your system. And so then it has this impact on your physical health that way.
Yeah, I think as patients, a lot of times people think of stress as like the things in the world that are happening to them, right? So that could be financial stress or stress with, a fight with a loved one, or job stress is really common, with a lot of my patients. But stress also can just be like that physiologic, biologic stress, right? We've put our body under stress because maybe it's healing from a surgery, or maybe we ran a marathon
Yeah,
and that was actually kind of stressful to our body, or
right.
maybe we didn't get enough sleep, right? So stress isn't always like
Mhm.
emotional related. It also can be some of these
Right.
physical things that happen to our body and that we might want to protect it from at times, especially when it comes to sleep.
Right, for sure. Or even like you said earlier, with new parents and bringing home a baby, it's not that you don't love that baby or, you don't want the baby, but it is stressful. It's changed your lifestyle, it's changed the dynamic between you and your partner. So those things are other sources of stress too that can be playing a part.
Yeah. So I think what I heard you say too is, that not getting enough sleep, it's going to affect appetite. And I think
Mhm.
anyone who's worked a night shift, which I'm sure like me, you did many of, like you feel that, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to eat a salad
Right,
at 2 a.m, right? Your body has all these
right.
fight or flight hormones going, and it literally is telling you get that quick fuel, right? Like clearly there's something stressful on. Why are you going up at 3 a.m? Like there's got to be something important going on. Are we about to fight a battle? Is there a tiger that's going to attack us? Right? Like it's under stress. And so it's like, get the quick
Mm-hmm.
fuel. It's not like, oh, have a salad, like, get something that your body's going to take a while to digest. It wants quick fuel. And so when we're in that constant state of fight or flight, our body really is not telling us to eat the right foods a lot of times.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We tend to have those, those cravings. Like you said, and typically those cravings are going to be for that sugar, salt, and fat. It's not going to tend to be those healthier things. And even amongst, a lot of studies have been done on shift workers. So you have these people who may, work night shifts, like that's their job to work at night. And they even can have a lot of health problems because
Yeah.
our bodies were designed to, have a certain circadian rhythm. We were designed to sleep at certain hours of the day. So even just trying to, no matter how hard you try to restructure that, that can still present its own set of issues.
Yeah, I think, night shift is one of the challenges that I'll see for patients where it's hard to overcome that because you do have all the hormonal shifts that happen from working at night. And then there's often not very good choices of food available, right? Like the
Right.
restaurants that serve, beautiful salads are not open in the middle of the night.
They
Usually
definitely
you're
are
working,
not.
there
Yeah.
might be vending machines and 7-Eleven and pizza delivery. Like there's not a lot of great options at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Mhm.
So that's a challenge. And then we really do see that there are negative health outcomes for people who chronically, work this shift work, partly because of that circadian rhythm disruption. And then I also wonder sometimes how much it is just the environment, right? It's just really hard to
Yeah.
eat healthy at, 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it is. Because then, the other part of it is because your body is constantly trying to fight against being up that late anyway, then you're wanting something to kind of keep you stimulated. So, it's going to be those like sugary things or like caffeine. We tend to drink more coffee. And you're going to add some more
True.
sugar and some cream to that coffee to kind of keep yourself alert and
Yeah.
awake
Or
at a
energy
time when your
drinks
body's
and
really
soda,
fighting.
right?
Yeah, energy
Yeah.
drink. Yeah, your body's really trying to fight against that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so if someone is like me and they're recognizing I should probably work on my sleep, right? Like that is a self-care thing or a health thing that maybe I haven't focused on. I want to become more intentional about it, give myself the best chance to, take care of my health when it comes to sleep. How can someone get better sleep? What are some techniques you recommend to your patients?
Yeah, so a few things I recommend. One, turn the phone off and turn off any lights in the room. For a lot of us, we have our cell phone, smartphone right there at the bedside, and we're, checking Facebook or email or whatever. Just turn it off because that blue light will tend to keep your brain stimulated and keep you awake. So definitely do that. Sleeping in a room that's cooler in temperature tends to help too versus sometimes if we have our temperature setting too warm, it can make you have trouble with tossing and turning and difficulty falling asleep. Another big thing really is to get in a routine. So if we set our bodies in a routine to where we're trying to go to sleep the same time every night and we're getting up the same time every morning, then that's helpful to get quality of sleep because your body gets set into that set routine and that set schedule. Um, and then exercise. Exercise is helpful for getting restful sleep. It helps us, to burn off all of that extra energy. Exercise is good for our mental health and for settling our mood, for calming us. And so in turn, it helps us to also get quality sleep from that. So those, tend to be some of the things most
I
people
want to go
recommend.
back to all of those, but we just talked about exercise. So there's kind of, I think, a myth that you shouldn't let exercise too late at night because it can affect sleep. And I actually haven't looked to this in a while, but last time I looked into it, the data actually wasn't that convincing. So I know for me, I have patients who definitely describe that they can't work out too late or they have trouble falling asleep. I personally have always been someone who works out later in the day. I am not a morning workout or I do not care to exercise before 10 a.m. So I don't know. Have you seen that with your patients? I mean, I think people all have their own rhythms a little bit about what works for them.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just really, variable. person to person. I'm one of those people. I can either do early morning or in the evening, and it
Yeah.
still doesn't affect me. But I'm also one of those people because I know so much about sleep. I truly prioritize my sleep. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, you're intentional. Yeah, and
So
you have to
yeah,
prioritize. You have to
right.
be
I'm
intentional,
intentional
or
about it. Yeah.
especially like in the modern world with the internet and TV and Netflix and Google, like you can easily just stay up doing things, and not
Yeah.
prioritize sleep. So, and most of us can work from home
Hmm.
nowadays. Like it's just so easy to do something
Yep.
else and not prioritize it. Okay, so it sounds like you agree. Like exercise can be done any time of the day. Listen to your body. If it keeps you up, like do it
Right.
earlier in the
Exactly.
day. But I think it's a little bit of a myth that you have to do it in the morning. Some people definitely can do it later in the
Yeah.
day and sleep.
Right. Because then the other thing, you can think about too, like your kids. I know with my kids, if I take them to do something, take them to the park or wear them out pretty good, they're going to have a really good nap after
Yes,
that. So,
yes.
it's not always the thing where it's going to bother your sleep.
Okay, so speaking of kids, you mentioned having that bedtime routine. And I always compare it to kids for that because anyone who has had children or has taken care of children at nighttime knows the bedtime routine is key, right? For little kids, you do
Yep.
not mess with that bedtime routine, right? You're like, dinner, bath time, story, songs, whatever your routine is, and you stick
Exactly.
with it. If you mess with it, right? If you're on vacation or you stay out late for a party or a movie or something, like it's disaster, right? And I always compare that to adults because we're really the same way, right? Our brains still love that routine. So I always talk about that wind down routine, right? Getting rid of the screens like half an hour before bedtime, having some sort of
Yep.
wind down. Some people like a shower, a bath, reading a relaxing book without bright light,
Yeah.
maybe a hot tea, a meditation, any other
Mhm.
things you like to recommend as part of that bedtime routine for people?
Yeah, definitely. All of those things. I know for myself, something I like to do, I like to listen to an audio book because and nothing medically related. So something that really kind of like turns my brain down, And
Yes,
so
yeah.
that will tend to help. I'll typically do that for 15 to 20 minutes. And then after that, I'll put on like my calm app or my sleep meditation, and that's just gonna take me on out. But yeah, for me, it's just really like turning the brain off. So something, don't focus on your work, don't check an email or any of that kind of stuff because that's gonna kind of stay in your brain and you're gonna constantly be thinking about what you didn't do.
Yes. Yeah. You have to have like that shut off time where you're like, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11,
Yeah.
whatever your bedtime is 9. And you're like, work is done.
Mhm.
Like, and now I'm going to just read something or look at something soothing for my brain that is not going to get it all riled up. Like, there's no way I would be able to read like a thriller before bed, right? Like my brain's going to be racing.
Right.
I have to
Yeah.
read kind of boring, stuff that isn't too
Hmm.
stimulating for my brain before bed.
Exactly.
So maybe someone's tried all this or they don't feel refreshed from sleep or they're really having trouble sleep or sometimes people just wake up and they can't go back to sleep. When should someone see a physician or see someone about their sleep? What are some signs that, this isn't something
Yeah.
you can handle on your own?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So definitely if you have, tried, like we talked about that 7 to 9 hours of sleep and you've tried your sleep routine, yet you're still waking up and in the daytime, midday, you feel like you need a nap or you're gonna, just kind of physically crash. Then I would say see a doctor because there could be something going on. You still may not be getting fully quality sleep, even though you're sleeping that full time. Or if you're having trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep, say that you fall asleep just fine, but then about 3 hours later you wake up and then you can't fall back asleep for another hour or two even. That's going to cause you to be tired in the daytime because you haven't had a full quality set hours of sleep, allowing your body to go through all of those sleep cycles that it needs to actually rejuvenate and recover your body. And so those are all reasons to see a doctor. Also, if you are noticing that your blood pressure is going up, or if your partner is telling you that you may snore really loudly, or if your partner's telling you, oh, you seem like to gasp for your breath in your sleep, that could be a sign of sleep apnea. And those are other reasons to see a doctor to see if you may have some type of sleep condition.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm probably like me, where we see a lot of people with sleep apnea. And a lot of
Yeah.
times when they get that fixed, whether that's wearing a CPAP machine or a different way, then they just feel so much better. Like they're so grateful for that. So I think a lot of people get intimidated. They don't want to talk about if they think they have sleep apnea, but most of the time,
Mhm.
getting treatment for it like really is life changing.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of times people will jokingly say, "Oh, they snore so loud," and not think that, oh, that could be a health condition, but it could be a health condition. So yeah,
Right,
so if
right. Yeah,
are
snoring,
finding
especially
that
if
you're
you don't
tired,
feel refreshed, like you should look into that snoring because
right?
it's probably a
Yeah,
sign. If you're snoring occasionally when you have a cold or allergies, that's one thing. But if it's all year round, probably something to talk to your doctor about.
yep, exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about stress. So we already talked about not getting enough sleep is a stressor to our body. That stress can be physical, it also can be emotional. And stress is something that I wish I had a magic wand for my patients for, because it is one of the things when someone reduces stress that I've seen most dramatically change someone's life, health, and weight. But at the same time, it's often hard for me to do very much about. So I'm going to share two patient stories that just highlight like how stress can just impact health. So I had this couple I'd been seeing for a while. The husband's blood pressure was really high. He was on multiple medications to keep it down. And the wife was, and they were both struggling with their weight, just really were not able to lose significant weight. And they just didn't feel great. And they decided, after I'd seen them for a year or two, that they were just going to like shake up their lives. And they decided to sell their home and take that money to pay off all their debt and rent a home instead and just financially rehab their life. And their stress level went down so much. They both lost significant weight, and the husband was able to get off of his blood pressure medicines, and they hadn't like dramatically changed what they were eating. They hadn't like started a new exercise program or anything. They just got rid of this huge financial burden that was just causing them so much stress that they just weren't really able to improve their health. So it was like just amazing and transformative. And then I had another patient, and this story was a little hard for me as a doctor because I didn't know the whole story for her. I had seen her for many years, and she'd come in and we'd talk about weight and we'd make some changes in terms of like nutrition and medications, and she'd lose 5 pounds and she'd regain it. And, we just kept doing this for like years and years. And then finally she left her husband, got divorced, and I saw her a little bit after that, and she had like lost like 30 pounds, like kind of effortlessly for once. And it had turned out she had been in this physically abusive relationship and literally was constantly in this state of fight or flight because she feared for her life on a regular basis. And it was so amazing to see that transformation that happened when she wasn't in that constant state of stress. But of course, my heart just broke that she was in that situation for so long. But those are two stories that always stand out in my mind of how stress really just impacts health. And for some people, without changing that stress level, it's almost impossible to get benefit from nutrition or from exercise or from their medications without reducing stress. So I guess tell me, I don't know if you have any like patient stories like that you can recall,
Yeah.
or what you've seen medically, but that impact of stress on health and on weight.
Yeah, even just a friend of mine, and I had her on my podcast not that long ago too. But a friend of mine, she worked in corporate America for decades, and over time, what she found is that she developed type 2 diabetes, or had become insulin resistant. She was traveling, the majority of the week and working these really long hours. And no matter, her doctor would put her on more and more medication. One while she was even on insulin, and until she finally decided, enough was enough. I'm so stressed, from my job, and to a point where I'm even having a hard time, seeing my doctor because I'm just working so much. And so she left corporate America. And until she had done that, she had trouble, controlling her diabetes. But after leaving, She was able to lower her blood sugar to where she's not even, needing all of those things
Wow.
anymore to even control it. Yeah, and lose weight. And so, yeah, it makes a huge impact on our health. And like you said, for us as physicians, sometimes it is hard for us to treat stress because, for one, we can't physically, take our patients out of whatever that environment or issue may be that's causing the stress. We can treat the ramifications of it, whether it be the high blood pressure or the high blood sugar and those things, but we can't necessarily, remove them from stress. So yeah, it can definitely be challenging.
Yeah. And I think we shared some really like dramatic examples that had dramatic results.
Yeah.
But, and sometimes it really is like you got to leave the toxic job. You have to leave the toxic relationship. You have to transform how you live your life in order to, change your health. But maybe on a smaller level for people who are maybe
Yeah.
not at that extreme or aren't ready or able to make such a big life change. What are some of your favorite tips to give patients about how to reduce stress and how to
Yeah.
reduce our body's response, right? Because stress is really how we
Mhm.
respond to something, right? So for some people, they can
Yeah.
go through a really traumatic, stressful experience that I think we'd all agree is stressful and traumatic, and the way they respond and their body responds is not that dramatic. Like their body doesn't respond with
Right.
that fight or flight. And then some
Mhm.
people have what seem relatively minor. I remember a patient I had years ago who was like moving from like one nice house to like a nicer house, and that was like really stressful for her, right? And I was like, that doesn't seem that
Yeah.
stressful, but for her it was causing a lot of stress. And so like stress is how we react to things, right? So I don't, do you have
Mhm.
tips of like how to reduce stress for your
Yeah.
patients that you like to share?
Yeah, yeah, sure. And one that I really like, I recently I was working with a patient of mine, and this patient, they're a busy professional, they own their own business, and so they were starting to have panic attacks. They were finding, that their day would get just kind of out of control, to a point where they would have these episodes of panic attacks. And so one of the things that we talked about and that I had this patient go do is to take a break in the middle of their day. I said, okay, you're going to take a break. You're going to go outside just for 10 minutes. So it's nothing that's it's not going to cause a big dramatic shift in your schedule. It's just 10 minutes. You're going to take this break. And you can, go outside and just hear the birds chirp if you want, or you can go walk or whatever, but just go outside, breathe, tell your staff nobody's allowed to contact you within this 10 minutes. You are totally off for 10 minutes during this day. And so they did that. And, they decided that they would go sit in their car for 10 minutes. They would just breathe in and out, do absolutely nothing, just kind of sit there for 10 minutes and do nothing. And that alone, lowered their level of stress to where they were not having those afternoon panic attacks that they were previously having.
Wow.
And so just even, the thought of taking us out of that stressful environment for just a brief moment, breathing, recentering our thoughts, recentering our minds, and just, quieting, if you will, all of that kind of noise and chatter from the constant of our day can be helpful in just reducing our stress levels. So it doesn't always have to be, some huge dramatic shift that we make, but just really just taking a moment for ourselves and kind of quieting the noise.
Yeah. And there's tools too that can help. I think for some of us, 10 minutes, like with our own thoughts, is a lot. So, like a lot of the
Yeah.
smartwatches have like the breathing apps, there's apps on your phone. You can do a
Yeah.
brief meditation. I like the app 10% Happier. It has really nice, short, realistic meditations, and they like completely understand that your mind is going to wander and they like accept that and just help you direct it back. So, that's an app I recommend sometimes to my patients to just do like really, really quick
Yeah.
meditation. That's called 10% Happier. And I think that's a nice
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
breathing, taking a
Um,
break, being
uh-huh.
outside, other favorite stress
Yeah.
reduction tips.
Yeah, another thing I like are also affirmations. So, a lot of times, like you said, when we are under stress, it's because the way our brain and our response to whatever that situation may be going on. So sometimes just having positive affirmations. There's an app, we talked about apps. There's an app that I like. It's just called really the affirmation app. And it gives you a new affirmation several times a day. So sometimes just reading those and saying them out loud to yourself, because you're helping to erase those negative thoughts and put in a bunch of positive thoughts into your brain. And so that can also be helpful for relieving stress.
I love that. That's a great
Aromatherapy.
one.
Yeah,
Affirmations. Yeah. Like almost like
aromatherapy
or
is
like a mantra.
another.
You could have like your mantra or something that you can repeat to yourself or
Exactly.
affirmations. So that's a great one. Yeah. I
Yep.
feel like I don't think about that a lot. So
Yep.
I always think of what
Yeah.
was that Saturday Night Live skit where he's like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. I don't know if anyone remembers that SNL skit, like, the 90s, but I sometimes, say that to myself because it makes me laugh, number one, thinking of that. But it
Yeah.
like changes that mindset. Gratitude
Hmm.
journals are another way that you can like change that mindset. So some people will like try to focus on three positive things that they write down for themselves every day, or three things they're proud of, three things they're grateful for. And that can take just 30 seconds to write down or reflect on. And that can also start changing that brain chemistry to a positive place.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then the other last one I was going to share was aromatherapy because I found that that's another one a lot of people don't think about. But certain scents like lavender for one has been shown to be calming. For some people, even, there are these scents you can buy. It's like a cotton candy scent. So, things that takes and it relates back to our brain, things that takes your brain back to a happy place, a happy kind of environment can be helpful too with resetting those thoughts and reducing your stress that way.
I love that. Yeah, lavender is great. It's so easy to find like lavender sprays, and
Yeah.
they make like the jewelry that has the little beads you can put the essential oils on. So that's
Yeah.
another, I love that. The scent, the aromatherapy, that is an awesome one. And so like easy, right? Like, it's a small
Yeah,
investment. It takes very little time. Literally, you can stop and smell the
exactly.
roses or the lavender or the cotton
Right,
candy.
exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank
for
you
sure.
so much for joining me today so we could talk a little bit about sleep, how lack of sleep is a stressor for our body, and then just stress in general, because I think those are some of the underlying things that without addressing, all the weight loss medications or the best nutrition plan or the best exercise plan in the world sometimes can't improve health without dealing with sleep and without dealing with stress.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So if people want to connect with you, if they want to find your podcast or get your, coaching, your wellness services, how can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is www.eohcoaching.com. And then my podcast is called Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast. It's on all of your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify, all the things. And I drop a new episode every Tuesday. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah. And I love your podcast because it is like to the point, right? Like you have a topic,
Yeah.
you cover all the key points, like there's like no filler. So it is such a great educational resource to learn about a topic without, like a bunch of chit chat, which for me sometimes like I just want to learn, right? I just want to get the information. So
Right.
thank you guys so much for joining us
Exactly.
today. I'm
Thank
going
you.
to put all of Dr. Shayla's information in our show notes so you can get those there. And until next week, take care. Thank you for listening to the Doctor Francavilla Show, where we learn about all things related to weight and health. If you love this podcast, make sure to leave those 5-star reviews and share this podcast with a friend or loved one. If you have a topic about weight and health you want me to tackle, head over to the website, thedrfrancavillashow.com, to submit your question. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss next week's episode. Take care.